legends, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of FatChat by Body Majic. Thanks for everyone that's been tuning on in regularly. I'm super excited to have the guest that I've got in today. He's a Premiership player for the West Coast Eagles. He's played over 150 games. He's part of the leadership squad down there as well. He's also the host of it's absolutely humming and pumping at the moment, the Forward Drive podcast that's part of the BackChat network. Please welcome Liam Duggan.
Thank you very much,
mate. Thank you very much for coming down. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, thanks so much for coming down and doing a pod with me. We've sort of crossed paths when you've been in here.
Yeah, us part-timers, eh?
Yeah, recording the show and stuff, but we never actually got to have a good chat. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited to hear some stories about your career and how you get the most out of yourself and performance and everything. But how's the off season going? Good?
Yeah, it's been good, mate. We're obviously coming to the end of it now, so it's sort of getting back into the swing of things and ramped up the training quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. But it's been really nice. We're really lucky we get such a big break this day and age, and it's even changed a lot since when I started. This is my 10th pre-season, so not that long ago. Yeah. The breaks have gotten bigger and bigger, so it's a great time to be able to actually step away from the game and give yourself the full physical and mental refresh that we need.
Definitely, yeah. So, you've been away, you've had some trips as part of the Forward Drive podcast we'll get into in a second. But, what's your training looking like at the moment? Are you back running with any of the guys? Are you doing skill stuff in the gym? Do you have any people that you work with, outside of West Coast? Or?
Yeah, so once I got back to Perth, I sort of started to try and hook in with the boys. So once everyone's back around town, they normally, it beats training by yourself, right? So you try and join in with everyone else that's around. So, yeah, three days a week still, I suppose, running football style training plus all your gym. So some boys are more, the program this year was tailored sort of for the individual. So I was probably a little bit less than others. There was sort of the normal average group, and then there was a few, some of those younger blokes doing a little bit more as well. So yeah, great. It's great just to hook back in there with the boys. Have you got a new
strength and conditioning coach staff or whatever down West Coast this year?
Yeah. So Matt Innes has come on as the head of S&C now. So
it's always a bit scary when there's new ones because they like to push the boundary, do their new stuff,
figure out who their boys are going to be, the new testers, all that sort of thing. So, but I've had a couple of meetings with him now, and he seems like a ripper. So it should be good fun coming into this pre-season.
Yeah, great. And the trip that you just went on as part of the Forward Drive show, how did that go?
Yeah, awesome, mate. We had a ball. So we did 3 Forward Drive shows over the off season. So we went to Sydney, Adelaide, and Perth has just finished. So we ended up doing.
Did you drive in between?
Yeah. So I was actually apart from the Sydney show, so I was on a road trip with my partner, just doing the East Coast actually, and then it just worked out really well that on the way back to WA, we'd stop in and do the Adelaide show, and then
so good.
Spent sort of a week on the road.
So how long does that take you to get from? How long was that trip that you did with your partner, and then how long does that actually take to get from Sydney to Perth?
We were on the road. My partner and I were probably a month sort of thing.
Yeah,
but we did the AFL Grand Final, and then sort of did our trip. I dropped her off in Queensland and she flew home, and then I made my way back to Adelaide. Yeah, she didn't want to do the
fair enough. I wouldn't want to do it back either.
It's a big ask. I was pretty lucky that she was so willing on the way over. But so once we got to Adelaide, so I had to stall a little bit just back home and catch up with some family and stuff. But we took 3 days from Adelaide, or 3 nights from Adelaide, which is more than you need. If you're punching it out, you can go a bit harder than that. But it was really good. We sort of got to spend obviously with Jaden here and Ronnie, who the co-host on the show is, and his little team. So we had a nice little sort of bonding session as well on the way over, which was good because instead of just rocking up here for the chat, we actually got to spend some time and hang around the campfire, which was good. So we do all this, we talk about it all the time. We actually hadn't done a trip together, so it was good to do
That's good. Like you said, it's great, just good for the bonding and everything, and just being out and actually making a trip out of it. How did you actually get into that to start off with? Is that something you've always done, like your family and that growing up?
Yeah, little bits and pieces, not overly. A lot of the stories I've heard from the people that I've interviewed is just they've been doing it their whole life. As soon as they were walking, they were camping, those sort of stories, which is what I was doing with footy. These guys are fully into their forward driving and camping.
It's a serious business. Well, I'm not into it myself. I'm more of a glamping guy, right?
We all don't mind jumping over there.
I'm not much into the tents and that sort of stuff, but I can appreciate just the hobby side of it because I'm into hobbies. I'm into I've got aquariums. I collect footy cards.
Yeah.
Shoes, all that sort of stuff. So I can appreciate when you really get into a little niche thing like that, it's just a whole of you can keep going down the rabbit hole.
These shows, there's some big numbers, but I think I just sort of grew into it a little bit, especially once I got here. I always did love it growing up, and then once I got here, the accessibility, if you've got a four-wheel drive in WA,
there's so much that you can do,
just so much you can do, and sort of everyone at the footy club seemed to have a four-wheel drive when I bought mine, and just sort of grew from that a little bit. So but now I'm a sucker for it and spending too much money on it.
Now you're in, you're locked in, yeah. And I heard from someone that even though you're very much into your cars and full driving and everything, you don't actually have your manual license. Is that right?
I don't, yeah.
I also don't have my manual license, so that's good. It's no problem.
That's fine at this table.
It needs to be normalised, not having manual license. There's only been one time in my entire life that I've gone, I wish I had a manual license. One time. It wasn't an emergency.
It wasn't?
It was just like I needed to move a mattress from a house to a house, and my car wasn't big enough, and I said, I'll borrow my friend's car, and it was a manual. Yeah, so
gotcha.
One time only. Has it ever happened to you?
It has a bit more often than that, but I won't go into the detail of why I don't have it because I've spoken about that before, but it has been a little bit of a pain in the ass not having it.
Yeah, true. So I thought that for the majority of it, like four-wheel drive cars are manual, no?
A lot of the like traditionalists, the gurus, they will probably tell you that a manual's better, but an auto is just too easy.
So you kind of like shunned by people hear that they're like, is that like something? Is that
I feel like I've had to work harder to be accepted into the community.
That's so good. So another one that I heard was, were you at some Salt Lake somewhere? And there was some weird UFO sighting or something in the trail. I need to hear this.
Yeah. Oh, mate, we could go. It should be a whole episode on this somewhere, a series. But it's, I don't know. It's one of those ones where you talk about now and you're like, I just don't know how to explain what we're looking at. But like, I'm not into that at all.
Yeah.
Not a believer.
So paint the scene.
Stuff.
So where were you?
So we're like probably an hour west of Norseman. So we've just finished the Nullarbor and we were sort of like cutting it. Direct line to Perth, and there's sort of like a dirt road that you can take for sort of 300 k's that gets you. It's a bit of a shortcut.
Yeah.
Anyway, we pulled up.
Shortcut 300 k's. Yeah.
Yeah. Still a long way from Perth, but we pulled up there and it was getting late, almost sort of bedtime. And Jaden went for a walk out into the middle of the Salt Lake, and I was like, this is pretty cool. It's an open night sky. It was beautiful, like almost a full moon. It was a beautiful landscape. And anyway, we walked out there, and I'd been seeing these. I just thought they were satellites, sort of in the trees, like a little bit. So where I was sitting at the fire, I could just see these, I could just see these sort of flashing through the trees, but like irregularly, so it wasn't often. And anyway, when I followed Jaden out to the middle of the Salt Lake, and we looked over, and there was just like these dashes that I'd been seeing. They were like really constant though. So once we had an uninterrupted view, we could see.
So like that was like left and right going? Or
no, so they were all right to left, like all the same sort of pattern and all about the same amount. Like they would just appear, then they would fade left a little bit, and then they would just disappear, fade out. And there might be like one going, and then at other times there was three going, and then so it was
weird.
It was just like, long story short, we had no idea what it was.
It's a UFO, 100%.
But we're watching them for like 45 minutes, and it didn't stop. So
because like you think if it was like I'm not an astrologer, but like, if it was stars, if that was some formation of stars or a comet or something, it would sort of go away. But if it's like kept coming back,
I don't know. I think Ronnie thought asteroids. I reckon that was his answer, and I'm not like a big believer in UFOs, but that was as close as I was become to believing.
I'm sorry, there's no way that there's not aliens. There's definitely aliens.
I'm still not going to give what my answer is because I genuinely don't have one. But we put it out on our podcast as well, just like get in contact with us. So anyone through your channels here too, mate.
Yeah,
if anyone's got any idea,
please send them through because we need answers.
I'm losing sleep over it still. Yeah,
that's so good, man. Well, if you want to, I'm sure all those stories are over on the Full Drive pod as well. So make sure everyone go and check that out for more alien and conspiracy content. So good.
More depth over there.
Well, mate, so I'd love to know a little bit about how you got into your career and how you started football, and then we'll go into a little bit about your performance side of stuff and maybe sort of what's changed from when you first started at West Coast to now playing over 150 games and being a lot more experienced and a lot more professional. I'd love to know sort of the differences as you've gone through your career. So where did you grow up and how did you actually get into football?
Yeah, so I grew up in Victoria, back of Smarsh, not too far from Scoey in Geelong there. So we, I mean, footy was just, we loved it growing up. Before I could sort of play or make my own decision. Football was big in our family. We barracked for the Bulldogs back then, and it just always grown up. Dad had played. Mum really enjoyed her footy, and from as early as I can remember, we just loved it, and it wasn't forced upon us, but we just
part of
found the love
everything
as well. Yeah,
Yep.
and I think like a lot of Victorians, it just sort of it's similar to over here as well. It just sort of comes part and parcel of with your mates going through school, and then you join the local footy club, and you do Auskick, and so it was a very sort of standard traditional way to come into footy. But I just like a lot of other kids, I just loved it, and it was everything to me. So,
and were you always pretty good, or was there like a point that you all of a sudden were a bit better than everybody? Or
yeah, I was always fairly handy. I mean, I had I think decent amount of coordination, which sort of helped early on. And my dad was unreal. I have a younger brother too, who was obviously, once he was old enough, and we'd kick the footy for hours. And Dad was so good with his time for us. And he was sort of his heights of footy was sort of local level. He loved the game as well, but the
just
amount of
being
time
with
that he
him
gave us, it was just that he taught us the right way to kick. My brother and I probably overtook him as kicks, but he taught us the way to do it, and we just loved it. It became everything to us, and we loved the Bulldogs. Like the players were just everything to us.
Who was your favourite player?
Back then, so Chris Grant was like early on, so it got like the end of Chris Grant.
Gun,
That was my mum's all-time favourite. But I loved Ryan Hargraves.
Hargraves, really?
Yeah, so it was sort of a funny sort of... I think, well, Mum tells the story, I rocked up to one of the clinics one day that the Bulldogs are running, and I know what they're like now, obviously being on the other end, but apparently I walked up to Ryan Hargraves with his number on my back, and he was almost a bit shocked that someone actually came to him for the signature and was like, are you sure that's like... Yeah.
He was thinking, who used to have this?
Before?
Yeah.
But so he was sort of my one when I really started to like grip my teeth into footy. I think number 3 for Chris Grant would have been handed to me just from probably mum and dad, but when I got to pick, it was Ryan Hargraves. I think in 33, and then he went to 25. So that was my guy.
Yeah, there you go. That's what a random one to.
I haven't met many others that were shared the same.
There was
player.
one and only in that fan club. Yeah, that was you.
Strong fan club. Yeah.
And 2014, you get drafted. You're a pretty high draft pick, number 11. What was it like? During the draft and maybe early days when you're rocking up at West Coast, and how the team was at that time.
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky. I mean, I probably skipped over a bit there, but in my teens, I suppose, I was still quite small, but going all right with my footy. So I was still always a decent player, but missed out on a couple of squads in my early teens, and then I just got real lucky one day with I made a Vic Metro squad, and unfortunately a bloke had to pull out with an injury, so I played in the 16s sort of national carnival, which I wasn't meant to be playing in, but. Luckily I got my go, and from that made the AIS squad, and I think that's sort of what started to propel me into the I suppose higher end of the draft. And I always thought that it was a little bit unwarranted sort of thing for how I was going, but it that probably just helped me, I suppose, figure out what being in an AFL system was like, and it gave me a really good, I suppose, apprenticeship. Not that it's an apprenticeship to AFL, but it sort of set.
But you're playing on older guys, and getting that next
very professional
level.
Sort of like style of how we went about it at those camps and at Vic Metro and the AIS. So that's when I got into West Coast, and I probably, like a lot more of the kids are now, I think a little bit more on that professional side already, where not everyone probably had that back then at my age. But now these days, I think the change is that they're all sort of in that mould almost. Which is pretty scary when they're coming through and they're already sort of bigger and stronger, and they're running Unreal 2K time trials and stuff like that. So I was a little bit of that mould probably early on, which helped me settle into, I suppose, to my first couple of years over here.
How long did it take you to get your first game? So you must have been quicker in than some of the other guys that were drafted with you, right?
I mean, my draft group was pretty handy early on. So 2 of my other I suppose draft class played round 1 in our first year, and I played round 2 in my first year as well. So we didn't have to wait long at all, and that was a pretty strong side at the time. Obviously that team went on to play in a grand final that year. So pretty lucky to come at a decent time.
Yeah, great. And I've got some questions that I chucked up on my story and had a few people send stuff in. Some West Coast fans. Who's the hardest player that you've ever had to play on?
There's a couple. I mean, the ones that I dislike playing on the most are the ones with the tricks. So the small forwards with tricks.
Yes.
I mean, I think of Eddie Betts and Cyril when you just, I would never be on them for a whole day, but the times that you would end up on them were the ones where you were the most, threatened. Yeah. And then, like now, Toby Green's one that is just an incredible player. So he normally will get someone that's playing a genuine role on him. But it's the ones with the tricks that scare me.
Ones.
The ones I suppose that are probably your first picked every week are the ones that will run 15 Ks a game, and you got to try and keep up all day, and they'll just sort of run you into the ground. But they might, they might have their 10 touches, and you've just got to stop them from kicking 2 goals. Whereas these blokes with the tricks, they could kick 5 on you in 10
so then
minutes.
When you're actually like preparing for guys like that, are you watching loads of tape, or after a game that you're playing them, are you one of these guys that like write stuff down? Like, is there anything you do with that?
I'm pretty fortunate. I don't really get those lockdown roles. That might be saying something about my defence. But I think that, the way I play is probably a little bit in between that defend/rebound defender. So I've been lucky. We've had blokes like Brad Shepherd and Jackson Nelson when he was back there with us, Tom Cole to an extent now, and playing on those smaller blokes. I mean, Scully's even shut down a few of them as a bigger bloke. I think if he's still in here, hopefully he is. But yeah, so I've been lucky with that I probably haven't been handed them too much. I don't have to prepare a lot on them, but you certainly need to know,
of course,
what their tricks are, and that's where you'd take a little bit off Brad Shepherd, say preparing for Eddie Betts. You would just have a look at a little bit of what Shep's doing in case you do get stuck on him, because you don't want to let Shep down,
of course,
and let him kick 2 goals on you while Shep's having a breather on the bench. So you need to cover that.
You're just knowing just enough to get you by for the bits that you need to be on.
Yeah. And then it's like, as soon as he's back out there, it's like, mate, he's yours again. Yeah, we're off.
Next question was, are you ever going to bring back the mullet? That got asked about 3 times. That
geez,
everyone
mate,
loves it.
What is it? It's almost 2024, and yeah, that was so that. Yeah, I mean, I love the mullet, and I sort of had it back a tiny bit just before this last haircut, but yeah,
it's looking fresh this recent.
Yeah, this is quite this is a bit unusual for me to be trying to look this sharp.
Yeah, it looks good.
Don't know how I'm going with it, but yeah, we I don't think we'll see it in its full flight, or in its glory. So that was a bit of fun while it lasted.
I think people are going to be hella disappointed by that.
Yeah, I know.
By how much it got asked.
A lot of attention still.
So, like, you've now played 150 or over 150 games for West Coast. So, walking in day one versus you now, what do you reckon has changed for you in terms of how you prepare, how you think about games, recovery, all that sort of stuff? Like, what are the main things that when you look back, you go, oh, wow, look at the improvement that I made in that time?
Yeah, it's funny. There's just a lot of added weight when you're younger around playing, and especially being in the side early on, and very fortunate to be. But there was always that, I suppose, that little bit of like angst that it was you were going to get the phone call Wednesday or Thursday night, and you were going to get dropped back to the waffle. So
just because the spot wasn't always guaranteed.
Yeah, and I mean I wasn't starring by any means back then either. So it was sort of like I look back at that time, and the biggest difference in that is probably a mental thing. Is just although I don't consider myself safe in this part of my career either, just knowing the ins and outs of the week and game day, and I suppose just becoming more confident in yourself and your own performance as well is probably the biggest thing. So I remember back to those times, and I do feel for the young blokes now, because there's a lot of pressure,
just
especially
the stress of not knowing if you're in or you're out.
Yeah, if you're on the cusp, it's almost. I've heard boys talk before about, and I've been in this place before too, where it's almost like a relief to be dropped, because you think you might for 3 weeks think, this week's probably going to be it. I snuck in. This week's going to be it now. And it's like, I snuck in again. How good's that? And then you almost do yourself over with that thought, and you're kind of waiting for yourself to be dropped then. And then when it happens, it is a relief, but it's not the way to be playing your footy 2 weeks before. So that's probably the biggest thing, where now I don't worry about selection, purely because I feel like I know what I'm going to get out of myself on game day, and at the moment, that's been a decent enough outing. So I'm much more confident in that area. But body-wise, it's just the layers of pre-seasons now and game in-season mode as well. It's just sort of the layers to get where I need to be come day one of pre-season. It's much easier to find. Like running back then was, I hadn't had an operation yet on my knee, or it was easier back then to run. But the rigours of AFL footy in the pre-seasons, and then when you hit game mode,
up and
I just find even off surgeries now quite regularly in the last couple of years, I'm still running out to the end of the season. Whereas in my first 3 years probably, I was like round 18, 19, you're genuinely looking for the finish line. I
starting
found
to break down for it.
Yeah, I think just the layers that you build, the resilience sort of that your body just finds for you after years and years of doing it. And obviously that, will start to decline at some stage, but I feel like I'm still young enough to be in that sweet spot for it.
Yeah, definitely. And was there any like coach or player or anything early on that gave you any sort of feedback about things that you needed to improve on, like whether that be, a part of your game or skills or, your training or anything like that? And then what did you kind of put in place to improve and to improve on that?
Yeah, there's been plenty. I mean, Luke Shuey was huge for me early days. I think having a similar path, just with coming from Victoria, host family, playing some footy
Connected
early
with
on,
him pretty well.
And playing a similar position to him at the start as well. So he was massive for me at the start, and it's only something he told me in the last few years that really sort of rang true. And I'm not sure how he came to it, but he told me as long as you walk off every game knowing that you gave 100%, he was always fine with himself. And it sounds very cliche, and he did word it a bit better than that, but I won't reveal all his secrets. But because he's going to be telling heaps of young blokes that now after he's coaching. But so I think that part of it was big for me. It's like give everything. You mightn't be the star player like Shuey was at times. So I don't see myself in that mold as a player, but if I can give everything every week, that would be enough for me. And like I said, at the moment, that's enough in the output that I'm giving. So, and I mean, it's a challenging time for the club. So there's been plenty of advice over the last couple of years, but early on, some of that stuff is just, the real basic stuff that now I look back on and just think about how sort of true it actually is. And you hear, some of the older players at the time, and you're just like, oh, I've heard that 1,000 times.
Yep.
But yeah, it certainly rings true a lot more now, being 150 games in, and I suppose in the more experienced side of our group now. So I think there's a lot of people. Like, I even think of Sam Mitchell when he came to the club for that short amount of time, playing with him and then being coached by him. But just some of the stuff that he instilled on the group and on me, we've all remembered that. The ones that were lucky enough to be there with him, and then Simo right the way through, just the way that we've grown together. So there's been a lot of stuff, and it's really important too. Some of the best advice I did get when I was early is don't take everything you get.
Yep.
It's like you've got to have a few people that I'll listen to you every time, and then you got to take some of the others with a grain of salt sort of thing. So you also
just got to like work out what works for you too.
Yeah.
Because whatever that advice is, say the training stuff that I'm doing at the moment as well with doing my Ironman or whatever, it's like you get lots of it. Like you said, you get so much advice, but you got to filter through what sort of applies to you.
Yeah.
And what you're able to apply to your situation and actually enjoy in everything.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's sort of how you come up with what works for you.
I don't know how you go with your training, but I like trying. Like I'll still try new things now.
Yeah.
And everyone says like you've got your routine and you must be set and you've been doing it for years and years. But I'll still like tinker with almost everything in my preparation, especially just because I actually don't want to get stuck in the one. So it's like if something doesn't go right in my preparation next week because I didn't hit these on the it's like it's all good. I've sort of it's within this sort of circle. It's close by. I try and keep everything sort of close and related, but. If I'm set on one thing. So that's where it's kind of nice to try a few different things that you get from people, but then you find the ones that work, like you say, and you stick to those.
So like in your little circle of routine and your stuff that you do, what's like, say, a week look like for you? Maybe let's talk about maybe the last 12 months. Is there anything that you've sort of tinkered with and changed in the last 12 months for training prep games?
The biggest one's been, it's probably... a little bit unique, but there'll be plenty of people at my age, especially that are going through that. Is just like I suppose I'm what we call joint compromise now because of my knee injuries. So it's probably like been times where I felt like I haven't been doing enough during the week to get what I need to get for game day. So I'll tinker with that and I'll push it up a little bit and I'll tick it off with everyone and we'll make sure we get out there a little bit more often. And then you have 2 really good weeks on the track and you might play all right on the weekend or whatever, but you end up being really sore off that increased workload. So for me, the last 12 months, all the tinkering's been around my training loads, and they've done a really great job with me. I think I've played I think I've missed maybe 3 or 4 games over the last 2 years, and,
which is great.
And probably one of them, one of them was probably with my knee, and that was off a PCL Rico. So it's been, I think we found the right routine, but there's definitely been times where I've gone into games too sore because of trying to up
Whatever
that load
you've done during the week.
Yeah, so all the tinkering at the moment is probably less off field and more on the training track at the moment, which I'm enjoying trying to find the level, and I'm feeling really good in my knee at the moment too. So that's kind of nice. But then I've also learned in the past, when I feel really good and I up the ante a little bit, it can come back and bite me on the arse. So I've just got to be careful with that.
Just got to keep it on that nice level all the time.
Yeah. And then, comes in with trying new things, and like I want to see what else I can do, or if there's anything else that might work for me. But there's also that part of me that's saying, I've found my groove with the knee now. So in terms of like obviously upping and bringing the training back's all right, but even like sort of extracurricular stuff that you think you might be able to get into and you have a crack at, but it sort of again gets you. So just figuring all that out has probably been the biggest one in the last 12 months. Yeah,
great. And then do you do anything like with your diet, nutrition? Do you cook much? Are you into that side of stuff?
I knew this would come, so I came prepared. But I would be. So I'm very fortunate that I don't have to worry too much about what I eat in terms of weight, and I know that will eventually
change at some point.
Change at some stage. So
you're going to be like half the guys down the forward drive conventions.
Yeah. I'll fit in there, but I'm prepared for that. But I don't eat I'm not unhealthy with my eating, but I probably don't have to watch it as much as other boys do. So I'm very lucky there. I can probably enjoy a sweet or two when I want, which is
it's
really
also because you're such a high active person with all the training and everything that you're doing anyway. You're just burning through calories all the time. So it's not exactly like the calories that you're worrying about too much.
Yeah, no, that goes in. I don't weigh all of my food and all that sort of stuff, but I try to eat a healthy, balanced diet. I'll obviously do my carb intake pre-game and protein after, all the sort of standard stuff, and we've actually as a footy club sort of upped the ante with that as well, which is really great. So it's almost like a collective buy-in as well. So but I don't have to watch it too hard, and that again, when I keep things sort of within the circle, it'll be I can have a different meal each week, and it's not going to affect how I think I'm going to play. So I'm big on that as well, is just eat sort of, if we're at the buffet in Melbourne, at the hotel, if I don't feel like pasta, just have the rice or grab something else, or mashed potato or whatever it is. If I don't feel like rice when I get home the next week, then I'll just cook a pasta dish and that. So keeping it fluid amongst the diet, but healthy and balanced.
Yeah, that's good. And then, you've sort of said that, you like to keep it pretty loose with routine leading up to a game. Is there anything that you do get a little bit more structured in, even if it's like literally rocking up and your warm-up that you do, is it the same warm-up? Is it always different? Do you try to get X amount of kicks in? Is there anything like that? Yeah,
I probably do. If you ISO cammed me 2 hours before a game, it would probably look very similar most weeks. The only difference is the time we get to a game interstate, excuse me. So that's a little bit different. So you have a little bit less time there, and it's a bit more rushed, but it doesn't worry me. I get to the games in Perth about 2 hours before, and it would be a fairly structured, sort of just way I go about it. But it's
probably a lot of stuff that you actually subconsciously don't even realise that you kind of do all the time.
Yeah. And I think being like comfortable with Optus now, been playing there for years, and it just sort of ends up being like the same track that I take. Yep. So, but I don't really like throw myself into it. Sort of, I'm not one of those ones that stares at the floor for 10 minutes before and
or
like
G's yourself
up.
Like
I haven't tried that one. It might work, but so it would look fairly similar, but it's normally sort of trying to keep it in that fluid range as well.
And then pretty early on. So how old were you for the grand final the Premiership in 2018?
I was 21.
21. Wow. Yep. So that's like super young to be part of like such a successful team. big stage, big day, high pressure. What was that experience like, from for that time of your career when you're nowhere near as experienced as you are now? And I'm sure you would have probably done a whole lot, even though it all worked out fantastic. There's probably lots of stuff that you do a lot differently from now to then.
Yep.
What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, mate, it was incredible. I mean, I was so lucky, like I said before, I just got to the club at a really fortunate time. So success was sort of like, we obviously the Premiership in 2015, which we lost, but then 16, 17, like we were touted as a really quality side still. We sort of didn't quite hit the marks, but I'd only known playing finals and been around past the end of the season, sort of into that time of the year. And I mean, I was just, like I say, so lucky that I could just go about playing my role in a pretty star-studded team that we just all really sort of worked well together. So that it's been a big learning now thinking about back then, because a lot of the boys that are playing at the moment, or in this year and the year before, are very young. And that was me at the time. But the difference was I had so many senior boys around me that it was like, just go out, play your role, have fun, and the unit will get it done sort of thing. But unfortunately, at the moment, we're relying on some of these young blokes to really stand up for us, and we just don't have the seniority around it through injury and whatnot. So that's where I feel really lucky to be around back then. And it was a big day. Like, obviously, I was shitting myself, and wasn't sure how I was going to go. Obviously, we started how we did, and it was just like, it was one of those things though that you look back now and you like how privileged to be a part of a game like that and an era like that. And now the exciting part about it is because there's plenty of us at the club that have tasted it. So that's the exciting part about the challenge now, to bring all these young boys through, and I got no doubt in a couple of years they'll take over.
Definitely.
It'll be them running the show, and I'm excited to see that as well. So
definitely. Yeah. So like, hypothetically speaking, right? So you were 21 then, and you're 26. 26 now.
About turn 27.
So like, I'm talking same result, right? You get the exact same result. Would you have preferred to win it at 26 or at 21? Do you think winning it at 21 has sort of taken away anything now that it's, harder to get wins and you get a new team and you're putting all that together? Hypothetically, like, what, same result, exact same result?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I feel like I've been asked this in a roundabout way as well, and I wouldn't trade it. I'd take it at 21 for sure.
Yep.
The only thing that I would have liked about winning it at 26 is being a senior player and maybe being one of those ones that really sort of led the charge and dragged us across the line.
Yep.
And you'd have to perform on the day. But I look at Luke Shuey's performance, and like,
if you could have had
that's a pretty good day on grand final day. So I definitely wouldn't prefer to win it at 26. I'll take it at 21 and just being a part of it. But the thing that does excite me about wanting to get back there is being sort of, I suppose, more a part of the solution, or the answer of the win. So that part is the challenge for me now. But yeah, I reckon I'd have to take it at 21 still. It was pretty bloody good.
Definitely. So then the injuries that you've had throughout your career, I'd love to know a little bit about that and like how you overcame some of those. So you had the PCL, you said.
Yep.
Was there any other ones with your knee as well?
It's pretty much been that the whole time. Yeah, so I did that my first year. Yep, 2015.
First year, shit.
Yeah. So it was sort of, I did it later on in the year in the waffle, but I didn't get it operated on at the time. We just let it sort of heal up, and they put me on ice for the rest of the season, and sort of just let that heal up naturally and get going again after that. But I think it wasn't until 2018 actually, after the grand final, when I had my first sort of clean out surgery, little arthroscope, and pretty much from then it's been a little bit like constant. With little sort of update surgeries, and the major PCL Rico, and I had a Oates procedure done as well, which is a bit of a sort of a cartilage plug almost, which was I don't think we could find anyone else in the AFL that had done that yet, so that was a bit of a risk doing that one, but it's worked out.
How lucky
really
for you,
well.
First one to get one of those done.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool, a pretty cool procedure to have done, but it seems to have worked so far, and we haven't need to sort of tinker with that. So, but yeah, it's just been mainly my knee, little bits and pieces elsewhere, but that's been the major one for me, which has probably changed a little bit of how I've had to go about my footy.
Definitely. So like you had that first year, would that obviously would have taken a big hit to, I guess, the confidence and, mentally how I guess you'd be preparing for those next couple of years, because you're sort of saying before that you're already feeling a little bit on edge about getting selected, playing well, making sure you're doing all the right stuff. Plus you've then got this added burden of having to, rehab the knee and everything.
Yep.
How did that feel for you?
Yeah, it was interesting because I definitely had the second year blues. So I would have had a better first year than I did second year. I think I played a couple more games overall in my second year, but I definitely didn't hit the heights that I'd expected of myself, and I don't think I hit the heights that other people expected of me too. So that was a little bit disappointing. I don't think anything was to do with the knee. I just I had a pretty disappointing year that year, so I was sort of dealing with that as well, and that sort of started me thinking like, maybe I'm not. I sort of got pumped up my first year because no one really expects you to play. So getting games in your first year was awesome. And I maybe bought into the hype a little bit. I'm not sure. But definitely 2016 was a tough year. And then I got lucky in 2017, played pretty much a full season. That was when I swung down back, actually. So that was a really nice sort of change for me. And it just seemed to suit me naturally as well, how I went about my footy. So I suppose dealing with the knee back then was all early. I mean, I missed out on, being available for selection for that 2015 grand final. Whether I would have played or not is a different story, but that would have been cool to be a part of, I think, especially if I had been able to be a part of that, actually in the 23 or 4 at the time.
Also back it up and do that again. Do the next step. Yeah.
That would have been cool to be a part of, but I mean, also not a bad one to sit out of too. So. But yeah, I mean, that was the biggest lessons that we had from those boys though, through that game, and just the I don't know if calmness is a word, but just how calm the group was that had been there before, and that just sort of
calmed everybody else down.
A few of us that hadn't been in the position and hadn't dealt with the parade, we'd sort of seen all that from afar years before, but the way that we attacked that 2018 sort of campaign was just far different to what we'd learned from 2015.
Yeah, most definitely. And then like for not just the injuries now, but just in general in terms of recovery, wellness, making sure, you're getting yourself right for every week. Is there anything that you're doing either at the club or like away, using ice baths, you do massages? What's that kind of routine look like for you?
Yeah, it's that one I've actually enjoyed the last few years. Like I feel like early on you just footy. Yeah.
Well, you're so young because you bounce back. So when you think about when you're doing anything at 18, 19, 20, you're like, you can go for a massive run and you feel fine the next day. But then when you get a bit older, you go, oh my God, the hammies.
Yeah. Like I remember being young and I'm still young. I'm not old by any stretch, but in terms of AFL footy, it's starting to get on. But when you were young, you could cook yourself on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday pre-season training, but
no worries.
You had energy to maybe want to head out Saturday night and stuff like that. Whereas the difference now is like I need my Sundays just to relax, and enjoy a day off. But I think like the biggest thing for me now is I think I'm realising the weight of having something else outside, and not so much in like a head in the books uni or whatever it is, or doing a podcast. It's probably just going for a 5K walk with no markers, no expectation, just putting the runners on and going for a walk or a light jog or going down the park for a kick of the footy, even if you want to keep a footy in the hands. I'm starting to really enjoy that side of just being outdoors and active.
Just being a little bit in the moment of whatever you're actually doing and not having to, like you said, worry about the actual performance side of it so much.
Yeah. So I think I'm getting a lot from just doing that, or being out in the garden and just doing a couple of jobs, around the house for an hour or two, which I never would have gone near early on, because it's like if I'd pull a weed out, I'm going to do my back tomorrow and playing footy. So it's like that part of it I've really come to enjoy, and I think with recovery and all that sort of stuff, I've figured out a little bit more about what works for me. A lot more massage now, and even sometimes we'll take that off site just so you can get sort of an hour or over an hour on that as well. But I think the biggest part, like a balanced, healthy diet for me, I think a balanced, active lifestyle is starting to starting to shine through a little bit too on how much or how important that is.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's so true. Just sort of it's all in one thing. And I guess like because you're in such a high performance and high stress environment, you need to kind of find that nice little something else that you're doing, that you're taking that pressure off completely, right?
Yeah. So I enjoy even this off season, just going for like on the East Coast, would put the runners on, and Lauren and I would go for, we'd go for an hour and a half, walk around the Noosa headland or something like that, and just, you feel like you're getting something out of it still, but it was just nice to have no, like you say, performance sort of analysis on it, it was so I think that part of it, I think I will continue with that, whether it's go down for a swim at the beach or surf or just staying active outside of footy, I think is a big number.
Absolutely. And this all ties in, this question, to exactly everything you've just said then. Mental health and sort of keeping yourself, sharp and, relaxed is such a massive part about performing, which you've just said in everything there. The other thing I was so interested about, you don't have socials. You don't have any social media, right?
Yeah.
How does that? Socials. That must be really, really nice in terms of taking the pressure off and, not buying into all the stuff that's being said. Like, that must be awesome.
Yeah, mate, it's great. I mean, I've been off it for 4 years now, like completely off sort of all of them, like Facebook, Instagram, and all the other smaller ones. And I love it. I don't feel any need to get it back. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. And the best part about it is if I want to see something about,
you'll see it,
how I performed. Yeah, I'll go and I'll be able to find it somehow. So it's sort of I don't know what it really stemmed from at the time. I think I just wanted to have a crack at it and just sort of was thinking to myself one day while I was scrolling like we all do, and I just said, I don't really need to see all of this. Like, it's just stuff, and I'm just every 10 seconds my brain's getting something else, and I didn't really research like that. That where every 10 seconds we're getting something else, we need something fresh.
It's that dopamine hit and the slot machines and all that sort of stuff.
It made sense to me when I was thinking about it back then. It's just like I'm filling my head with stuff that is just irrelevant to what I need or to what I'm doing. So I got rid of it and just haven't ever felt like coming back around to it. And it's nice in a footy sense too, because unfortunately these days the ones that do want to get to you and have a crack,
you're so accessible.
You're very accessible. So I hear stories of the boys coming in and they laugh about some of these messages that they're getting, and it's a small minority, but they're still accessible from this minority. So they're copping wax and you ruin my bet and all this sort of stuff and every expletive under the sun. But now no one can touch me with that. So even because there's got to be some sort of subconscious aspect to that. Even if you're reading it and you're having a laugh about it, but it's like I feel like 3 hours later you'd still have that thought in the back of your head, like
absolutely.
I missed that goal and this guy didn't win his money and now he's having a crack at me. So parking all that's been really nice.
Absolutely. Do you reckon from the day that you started doing that, you started feeling more confident or better, a little bit more sort of, present in everything that you were doing in your career? Or
yeah, a little bit. There's just something like nice about whether I play well or I don't play well. There's just something nice about knowing that I can move on from it quicker than maybe what I would if I was reading some of those comments. And I know people say don't read the comments and don't.
But you can't, if it's there, you can't help yourself.
It's almost human nature a little bit too. So I definitely feel like I'm lucky in the sense that I could just move on from a game. So it's I can walk into the club or I can walk past the West Australian and one of the boys might give me a bit of flack about how I like a kick that I shanked on the full, or I might see the West and the back page says something about us, and I can still see all that and hear all that, but it's only a little bit of what I could be hearing. So
absolutely,
I think that's really nice to be able to move on from a game, and I would encourage like I said at the start about being in my first 3 years and having that weight and waiting to be dropped or whatever it might be. That at the time, having social media certainly didn't help with any of that, because you will read it if you did have a poor game. You almost go looking for the comments about you having a poor game, and I did that. And I don't. A lot of people say they don't do it, but I would. I would question a lot of them that say that. I feel like it's even myself, who I thought didn't do it, I was doing it when I realised when I got off social media, I realised I was doing it. So
yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny because like very much all the stuff that I do, I owe very much to the social media stuff and platforms getting it out there, which is so good. But in the same breath, as great as everything that I've been able to do and all these things that it stemmed for me, the biggest stress in my life is also that.
Yeah,
So it's funny how it's like,
Yeah.
I was thinking about this when, you know, I knew we were going to be talking and I saw that you didn't have any socials and knew that you didn't. So, it's just so funny how I know how much easier it would be in my head if I didn't have it.
Yeah.
But I'm in this bit where I'm like, I've got to kind of have it. So it's like
the way of
it's
the world.
hard, man.
I'm in a fortunate position too because I don't need it to, I suppose, help with my career, or it's not anything that, you know, for me it was just scrolling, and if I posted a photo it was about what I did on Saturday, you know, with my mates. But it was you know, I definitely see the positives of social media for sure. Like there are so many positives to it in that aspect. Like I suppose getting what you're doing out there in this podcast and the Four Wheel Drive podcast, you know, social media is big for us, and I understand that too, but I'm probably just in a fortunate position where I don't need it.
So good.
And
good.
I'm taking that. So.
I love it. I think I've done it before where I've like, you know, gone, okay, cool, I'm going to unplug it for a week, and it was so good. Like you feel so, fuck man, I'm jealous of it.
I still unfortunately spend time like on my phone though. Like there's still a trap in a way that I'll, you know.
What do you do on your phone then if you're not doing
well,
social
like
stuff? Games?
I'll go on car sales and realestate.com,
and buy expensive stuff.
Just look at expensive stuff. I'd be a poor man if I was. But like you still find yourself on your phone, YouTube, but like even that, trying to like slim that down too is the next challenge for me. So it's like, you know, I sometimes still do the pointless pickup. And it's just like, what do I do that for?
Yep.
I
felt it buzz.
I just put it back down and you know, come back to it later when it might, you know, if it's been 2 hours, you just check if, you know, what do I need to get anything from the shop? So, we don't need them that much, but I still find myself, so I haven't completely, I'm not an angel around my phone. It still comes out too often, but not having that distraction's been nice.
No, super interesting. So for this year coming up, what are you working on, and, you know, what do you think needs to happen with the team from sort of, you know, being at the bottom of the ladder last year? What needs to improve, and what are you really looking forward to improving and bringing for this upcoming year? Yeah,
it's interesting. So I'm still I'm preparing this year to be a defender. I played a little bit of midfield last year as well towards the back end of the year. So it's sort of
so that's a bit of a change there.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, so I'm not sure where I will end up, but defender at the moment. So just planning that. I'm really like a lot of what I do now is about feeling good. So I can usually get myself. I'm lucky in the sense I can get pretty fit fairly easily. Like it doesn't take me long to build a tank and all of that. And the footy, like I was saying before about the layers, like the footy layers are just in now. So that really helps.
That just kind of rolls.
That just rolls in, even with the amount of time off. So it doesn't take long to get all that back. But it's definitely the knee and figuring out how that, because I want to play for, you know, I want to play till I'm 34. Years. So figuring out a way
to make that happen,
to make that comfortable and get through there. So that'd be the biggest focus for me. But the group and personally, like we're in I look at it as in a pretty positive way. Like we've hit the bottom now.
You can't go any like
done and
it's
dusted.
Only upside.
Yep. And I think the way that the last two seasons have gone towards the back end of the year, and people might be a bit sick of hearing us say this, but like the signs are there that there's something, you know, there's something good coming, especially with the young talent that we've got coming through now, and we're about to add to that in a week or two. So I feel like the club's in a really good place, and it may not happen overnight, which I think everyone's pretty aware of, but the exciting part is for me, I'm coming towards the back end of my career, and I sort of get to, these boys don't need nurturing, but it's going to be cool to see these boys develop and grow into, I think, some stars of the game.
Definitely.
And if they're not stars of the game, they're going to be really decent players for our football club. And there's, you know, there is that's everything that I ever wanted to be. Was just a really decent player for this football club and a decent bloke around the traps. So I'm excited about the group that we've got coming through, and I think it's only a matter of time. But we won't be waiting. Like that's the thing as well. There's no need to wait either. These boys will come on as they come on. But yeah, I just think everyone's got that chip on the shoulder now about hitting the bottom, and you know, who doesn't want to be a part of that climb back up? So
absolutely,
that's the exciting part for me when I think about the next year or the next couple of years.
Mate, well, I'm a diehard Docker supporter, and
Yeah.
hearing that, I'm buzzed up all of a sudden
Yeah.
to hear the Eagles do. I don't know how you've done that to me. That has never happened to me in my entire life. But, mate, thank you so much for coming and doing the pod with me. I think that, it's so great hearing all those bits of advice. And I think West Coast is in a very, very good spot now that they've got Liam Duggan at prime of his career, ready to go, charging, being the head of the ship.
Just a back pocket, mate.
Yeah. But honestly, mate, thank you so much. To make sure everybody goes and checks out the Full Drive podcast as well. What have you got coming up with that?
Mate, we've got plenty of guest interviews coming up from the shows that we've been doing, so that's exciting. They've been really fun to do.
Great.
So they'll be sort of trickling out.
And the guest interviews are people in the Full Drive
in
scene,
the industry,
or is it in the industry?
YouTube sort of content creators, plus people that are running family businesses and doing a really great job of that too. So it's been a great insight for me. Actually getting to chat to those people. So I hope everyone, enjoys that, and hopefully I've asked the right questions. So
Absolutely.
if I haven't, then hit Jaden up and tell me what to ask next time. So
Too good, mate. Well, thank you so much.
No worries,
love
mate.
your work.
Thank you.
And can't wait to see what you do this year.
Cheers, mate.